If you have a 2-story home, then they will begin to put the floor system up for the second floor. Again, when they're putting the floor system up, I want you to not only think about the location of toilets and drains up on that second floor to make sure you don't put a floor joist in the way of these drains, or an I-joist, or a web truss. But you also may want to think about in where you're going to have some recessed lighting. If you're going to have a decorative, what we call a coffer ceiling, and you're going to want to be putting your recessed cans in the center of each of those coffers, you may want to do a little pre-planning to make sure you don't have a floor joist or a floor truss in the way of that recessed can, if there's a specific place that you want it. I know, like in some shower areas, I'm real hung up on for example, a light being directly in the center. If you're that way, then you may want to think in terms of where you want that light. If this is an important item to you, where you want that light. Is there a floor joist in the way? Or, as we'll see later, a ceiling joist? But they will construct the second floor just like we constructed the first floor. And then the framer will begin work on the ceiling and the roof. In beginning the ceiling and the roof, let me just cover some basic things with you. We may deliver all the boards out to a job site, and we will build the roof board by board. We call a stick-built roof. You see, if we ship all the boards out to a job site and we build a home board by board, we call it a stick-built home. Now, if parts of that home are constructed in a factory and we ship it out to the job site and put it together like a puzzle, we'll call it a prefab home. And you could go as far as actually constructing entire rooms and taking them out to a job site and stacking them together like blocks, and we would call this a modular home. On the roof, we could build the roof board by board. We call a stick-built roof, in that you would install a ceiling joist. Then you would have a ridge beam. You would have rafters. You would have collars and rafter braces or rafter supports. You'd have what we call strong backs. And you can see sketches of this, graphics of this, and even photos at 24/7. And we'll build it board by board. We call a stick-built roof. Or you can have sections of your roof constructed in a factory and shipped out to the job site, and this is a form of prefabrication. We call it a truss roof. And unlike the old days where they used to build trusses on the job site, they now build them in these factories and they ship them out to the job site, and the truss manufacturer can design the truss for the home. A truss roof, normally, not always, but a truss roof is normally cheaper to build than a stick-built roof. And the reason it's cheaper to build is because you don't have near the waste on a truss roof like you do a stick-built roof. And you can normally build it faster by using trusses. And the way the truss is designed, and you can see the design of it at 24/7, the way the truss is designed, it is normally stronger than a stick-built roof. I've seen demonstrations where they'd build a truss roof on the ground, drive a dump truck on it, and the truss roof would hold, whereas a stick-built roof would cave in. The truss roof is stronger. Normally, all the support for a truss roof are the exterior walls. The exterior walls. You need no support underneath the truss to support it. Whereas a stick-built roof may have a load-bearing interior wall that helps support the roof. I think you'll notice this when you see the sketches at 24/7. And because the truss is stronger, most of the codes will allow us to space the truss. If you remember the term spacing, instead of 16 inches on center, we're allowed to go 24 inches on center. But have you ever looked up on a roof and seen waves in a roof? That's normally because they use trusses. They'll spread those trusses 24 inches on center, and the roof decking or sheathing will tend to sag between the trusses. Because you'll see those unsightly sags in a truss, and because a truss is not really designed for any usable attic space unless you specify you want it designed for usable attic space, my personal preference is a stick-built roof. And the fact that a truss roof is stronger is an overkill in my area, because there's not going to be that many times you're going to have a dump truck on the roof. Now, if you lived in an area where they had a tremendous amount of snow or dump trucks on the roof, you might want to consider a truss roof. But I will tell you, if you want a big open room with no support walls or beams in it, or posts, if you want to build affordable housing, one of the quickest ways you can reach this goal is with a truss roof. I have built a lot of trusses. I just have a personal preference for stick built. And in some homes, you'll see the builder stick built part of the home, and then when they get in the garage, they'll use trusses in the garage to eliminate any posts or beams in the garage. So you'll see us mix and match it. Since I mentioned the ceiling joists, you want to make sure the ceiling joists are spaced in a way or constructed in a way they're not going to upset any recessed lighting cans if you want them in a specific place. On top of the rafter of the stick-built roof or on top of the top cord of the truss, you'll put a layer of material we call roof decking and or roof sheathing. On the roof decking or sheathing, whatever you want to call it, we used to always use in our area 1/2-inch CDX plywood. The thing I didn't like about the 1/2-inch CDX plywood is that if it got wet, it would tend to kind of warp and sometimes delaminate. And so what we started doing is when they developed your OSB board, now the OSB board wasn't 1/2-inch, it was like, it's like 7/16 OSB board, that oriented strand board. We started using the OSB board up on the roof, and I have no problem with the OSB board. And if you have a problem like this, you need to break through this problem, because we've got to look at other alternatives if we're not going to cut the old timber in this country. And I don't want to cut the old timber in this country. I want to save the spotted owl. Tastes a lot like chicken. I don't want to lose it. There are places in the country, though, that they still mandate that the builder use like 1/2-inch plywood. On some large luxury homes, we will actually almost be like commercial work in that we will go to even thicker, like 5/8-inch plywood on the roof decking, which is pretty darn heavy duty and expensive on top of that. But if you are in an area where you're required to use 1/2-inch plywood, understand the plywood comes several layers laminated together. You can get what is called a 3-ply, which is 3 layers laminated together, or a 4-ply, which is 4 layers laminated together. And if I were you, if you are required to use the 1/2-inch plywood, I would spend the little extra money and go with a 4-ply. It's much stronger, will hold up a lot better. From an energy standpoint, I really want to stress to you that you spend the money and go with a full back sheathing. And the most well-known is what we call TechShield. This is a piece of OSB board, and I think you can also get it with 1/2-inch plywood, and on the back of it, they will put a foil backing, an aluminum foil backing. And what this will do, the foil backing is turned toward the inside of the home, and it will reflect heat off the roof to keep your home, let's say, keep your home cooler in the summertime and reduce your heating and air bills. I think the foil back sheathing, primarily what we call the Tech Shield, you remember I mentioned on trusses that they would space the trusses 24 inches on center and the roof decking or sheathing would sag between the trusses. Not only will it sag, it will tend to separate. So what I recommend you do, and I consider this mandatory on a truss roof, you can see sketches of this, photos at 24/7 for clarification, is you will purchase little metal clips, steel clips, we call H-clips or sheathing clips or ply clips. And they will put one of these clips between each truss where the two sheets of decking come together. And what it does, it holds that decking in place and it will just about eliminate all the waves on a truss roof. I consider this mandatory on a truss roof, and you can get a whole box of them for $20. On a stick-built roof, one could say, well, this would be a little bit of an overkill because on a stick-built roof, your rafters are normally 16 inches on center. So your decking up there, everything is plenty strong enough being 16 inches on center. However, one thing I like about the steel clip, we used to have the aluminum clips, which I hated, just throw them away. And I think aluminum prices got so high they don't make them anymore, which is good. I prefer the steel clip. By using the steel clip, what it's going to do is give you a little gap between two pieces of decking or sheathing, whatever you want to call it. And in the world of master building, you should have a gap, because that sheathing up there, that roof sheathing or decking, it will tend to expand and contract depending on the outside elements. And so ideally you leave a little gap in the roof decking or sheathing, and this little steel clip gives you the right amount of gap. Even though this clip is not mandatory, I've seen a lot of home inspectors, when someone's reselling a home, they'll get up in the attic, and if they don't see the clips, which are not mandatory, they'll write it up as something's bad. And I just don't go along with that. But I do think you get a better job by using the clips. So even on a stick-built roof, if it were my home, I would spend the money. It's not that much more money, which is why I'm saying this, and I would use the sheathing clips even on a stick-built roof. I consider it mandatory on a truss roof. When your framer is up on the roof, they will build any chimney chases that are part of the design. And behind the chimney, the framer needs to build what is called a cricket or a saddle. And there's some places on the roof where, not even behind the chimney, where they need to build a cricket or a saddle. And what this is, picture any water that goes down the roof. If it hits the back of a chimney or the back of a wall or anything, that is a source of a leak. And what the framer will do is he will build these crickets or saddles to divert this water from behind a chimney or behind a wall, so the water will flow on down to the edge of the roof and just fall to the ground or into your gutters. You can see sketches and pictures of this at 24/7. So you may want to, I don't want you crawling up on that roof. I know too many builders today that are paralyzed because they fell off a roof. It's not worth it. If you want to just question the framer, that'll be fine. If you want to give him a camera and let him take a picture of it so you know it's there, that's fine. If you want to get a third party to get up on the roof and just verify the saddles or crickets are built, do so, but make sure they are built. The framer will now come in and they will install all the wall sheathing. And on the wall sheathing, you could have styrofoam, you could have different brands of insulated sheathing, or you could use a 7/16 OSB board, which is what I really like. One reason I really like the 7/16 OSB board is because it's so rigid that it acts like a wind bracing. And before we started using the OSB for the wall sheathing, we used to have to go in and install what we call a diagonal brace. And we used to do it out of wood, and then later they started making metal straps, and we would put the metal strap up there. If you're not going to use OSB board for the wall sheathing, then most of your framers are pretty well aware on where to install wind bracing throughout the home. But if you've got a large home, if you're going to build a home using stucco, if you're building on the coast where you have possible hurricane winds, the person that can tell you exactly where and how much to install of wind bracing is the structural engineer. Because if you build down on the coast where you have hurricanes, you're going to be building under the 100 mile an hour or maybe 200 mile an hour wind code. And the requirements to meet that 100 or 200 mile an hour wind code far exceed anything I'm discussing here. And they normally require an engineer to design this wind bracing, and it needs to be installed per the design. But the thing I like about sheathing the home with the OSB board is that OSB board creates excellent wind bracing for the home because of its rigidity. Not only that, it gives a great surface to put any kind of veneer on top of your home, such as siding. And I will say, if you are going to put up siding, I wouldn't do anything but the OSB board. Because I know, like on the Hardie siding, I used to see them put it on top of your styrofoam sheathing, which, has more energy efficiency qualities, but they would not install it correctly. And if you look down that siding, you'd see waves in the siding. It looked terrible. By putting that siding on top of OSB board, that way you have a great surface to nail the siding to, and it gives you a good flat surface, so the siding turns out very nice and neat. So if it were me, I would sheathe the home, cover the outside walls with OSB board, 7/16 OSB board. Your framer's number one goal in life is to get a roof on this home as soon as possible. Once they get a roof on this home, they'll now go back and take care of all the loose ends they have neglected to get the roof on the home. They'll do any decorative items on the exterior that will be covered up with stucco or trim. And then they're going to get inside the home and they're going to install all the dead wood. Now, a more technical name for dead wood is blocking or a backer. You can see a sketch of this at 24/7. And what the dead wood will do is anywhere two pieces of drywall or sheetrock come together, if the framer didn't build a corner in that location, you're going to put scrap blocks of wood in there we call or refer to as dead wood. And the framer installs all the dead wood. So even if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go to a home under construction and you'll notice in corners, at tops of walls and stuff like this, all these little scrap blocks of wood, and you're going to think to yourself, dead wood, and now you know. But I think you'll be able to look at the photos at 24/7 and figure it out for yourself. And the framer installs all this. The framer needs to go ahead and install any fire blocking. Okay, now this issue about the fire blocking, at 24/7, I've got a good article there about very good ways of installing fire blocking in the home. One place the fire blocking is going to really crop up, and this is if you're in an area where they have inspections departments that are regulating this stuff now, is in your terrace level. If you plan to finish this level off, well, you will probably lower a ceiling to drop below any heating and air duct or plumbing pipes. And where you drop this ceiling is where you're going to be involved in fire blocking. You will see this in this article at 24/7 that I think explains it very well and shows you ways of doing this. But some of this fire blocking needs to be installed now, or the inspector is going to slap your hand during the inspection and you'll need to install it later. And sometimes it's harder to install later. So I want you to be aware of it. The framer can build any rough stairs. He will be cutting what we call stair stringers. Again, at the sketches and graphs at 24/7, you can see what these different terms are, what I'm talking about. On stairs, there is a real art to building stairs. There's a certain ratio between the rise and the run. It's very important that they be pretty much exactly the same height, especially. Because if they're not, if you're walking up and down stairs and they vary in height, your mind creates a subconscious rhythm. And if they vary in height, it throws that rhythm off and you will stumble thinking you're a clumsy person when in reality it's the way the stairs are built. Years ago, they would purposely adjust one step either higher or lower than the other steps, and they called it a burglar step, so a burglar would trip on it and wake up the family. We don't do that anymore. Now, because there's a real art to building stairs, I no longer allow the framer to do this. What I'll do is I'll deal with these companies that will come in and prefab the stairs. Now, these companies that prefab the stairs, they can also, at the tail end, come in and build all the rails and everything, which is what I'll have them do. I want them to do everything there is to the stairs, or you could have your trim carpenter come in and do all the stair rails. But I found by doing the prefab stairs, oh man, they turn out just perfect. And so we will have at this point, this company to come in and measure for the prefab stairs. And what they can also do, since you're doing business with them, they'll bring in a set of temporary stairs. We call them draggers. And they'll bring those into the job site and the framer will tack them in place. So you'll be able to go from the first floor, second floor, or first floor to the basement without crawling up and down a ladder and killing yourself. And if you are in an area where you have inspections, the framer is going to need to put up some temporary handrails, because a lot of inspectors, if they come in for OSHA reasons and other reasons, if they see the stairs there and there's no temporary handrail in place, then they will shut your job site down. They can fine you. So while the framer's there, after they put in these temporary stairs, or if they build the rough stairs, we will have them build or install some rough handrails so no one's, just for safety reasons and to keep the inspectors happy. Also check with your prefab stair companies to see if they can do the safety rails for you. Sometimes they're able to do it even easier than the carpenter could do it for you. I just want to say on this prefab stairs, I've had a lot of students in the past. They would not listen to me in this, and they would let the framer build the stairs because it looks real tempting because it's cheaper. And the framer would do the rough stairs, and then it just turned into a real nightmare later. And I've had so many students tell me, Tom, if I ever build again, or those that went on into the business, they've said, I will never do this again without prefabbing the stairs and dealing with those companies. The framer will go in and build any arches that they need to build. On the arches, I want you to look at that company at 24/7. I'm sure you have a similar company in your area where they have these speed arches or these custom arches. They are so nice and neat and darn near perfect. And they are so much nicer than anything the framer can build. And they go up with ease that in a home now, that's all I use are these speed arches or these custom arches. And they just go in with ease. They cost a little more money, but the finished product is far nicer than what the framer is going to be able to do. So I want you to look into this for your arches and any dome ceilings. The framer can build any tray ceilings that are part of the design. And just so you'll know, now may not be the one that will check this, but just so you know, anytime you've got a large beam sitting on a wall, you need to have support under that beam. And I go into many homes and I may see a large beam sitting on a wall, and underneath that beam, there is no support. And you can't always depend on the inspector catching this. They're supposed to, but sometimes they don't. So use a little common sense and just kind of walk through the home, and any place you know you've got some load-bearing areas, like a beam sitting on top of the wall, it needs to be supported underneath that beam. Now, this is easy for me to say because I've got, 30 plus years experience. Now, for you rookie trainees, I would be very tempted as you get toward the tail end of this framing that you hire an outside consultant like a structural engineer or a very qualified home inspector or someone like this to come in and just walk around to see per the plans that everything seems to be well braced and supported. A lot of times it could be in the terrace level or even in parts of the home. You need to put a steel post for support. During the framing stage, that steel post may not be on the job because you don't know the exact length of it. And so what the framer will do is he'll build a temporary post out of wood and continue forward with the construction of the home. Well, you need to come in now and go ahead and replace any temporary post with your steel post if that's the way you deal with everything. There are still companies out there that will come in, measure, and they will either deliver this post and the framer can install it, or some of these companies, they will install the post for you when they bring it to the job site. This outside consultant person can also walk around and just check to see if all the wind bracing looks very good for the home. However, if you covered the home with the OSB board as I recommended, that OSB is an excellent wind bracing. I'm going to assume that you don't have near the experience I have, and that is someone needs to go through and check all the walls to make sure they're nice and straight, especially in areas where you have cabinets, because if you've got a crooked stud and they put that drywall up and it creates a little bow in the drywall, then it's going to show up like a country mile on a countertop. And they can caulk and fill in and stuff like this, but it never looks just right. So you need to go through and check all the walls throughout the home, especially the walls. Sometimes you'll check the ceilings to make sure those walls are nice and straight. And any studs that are bowing out or bowing in, however they're doing, that are crooked, they need to be replaced in some cases or simply repaired. You can see some sketches at 24/7 on ways of repairing a crooked stud. The thing that I would recommend you do is one person that's going to have to be working on these studs is your trim carpenter. Some people call a finish carpenter. If I were you, I would hire the trim carpenter to come in. You're going to have to pay them to do this. And I would hire them to come in and go through the home and check all the studs, and the trim carpenter go ahead and repair them. Because I think the trim carpenter can do a much better job repairing them than the framing carpenter. Now, they're going to charge you for this, for doing this, but I think you'll get a much better job. And since they're going to be working on top of these crooked walls, they're going to understand what they need and where so that everything is nice and straight. That's what I would do if I were you. However, you could have the trim carpenter just mark everything that's bad, and then you can mandate the framer go in and repair it. But a lot of times the way the framers repair stuff, I don't like the way they do it. And I would feel the trim carpenter would know the correct way of doing it and would do it the correct way. You also want to go through and check all the rough openings for the doors and windows. You could have the salesman for the company you bought them from go out there and check all the rough openings and verify everything is correct, because you do not want those doors and windows showing up and these rough openings wrong. And a lot of these salesmen will do that for you, no additional charge. Just check your room dimensions to make sure everything's okay there. There was no major screw-ups. And in a 2-story home up in the attic, you will probably put one or more heating and air systems up there. Now they're going to require, the inspector is going to require that you have like a 2-foot wide walkway going from the attic access door, where you may have a pull-down door, to that heating and air unit. And where the heating and air unit is located, you need to have a platform there so that when they put the unit up there, an inspector or someone servicing the unit has got something to stand on while they're servicing. So what I'll do is, if I were you, I'd get with the heating and air sub to find out where they plan to put the 1 or 2 units up in the attic. And then while the framer's there, I would take a sheet of your Advantech, it's 4x8 sheet of Advantech, and I would put that up there as the platform that the heating and air unit's going to go on. And that one sheet, you could verify this with the heating and air sub, should be plenty big enough for that one unit to sit on and give a service tech or an inspector room to work on it. From that platform, I would take scrap Advantech, or I would just take Advantech, cut it in half, because it's 4x8. So if you cut it in half, you'd have a 2-foot by 8-foot piece. And I would create a 2-foot walkway from that platform to the access door to the attic. And you just want to envision, if you pull down the stairs and you go up the stairs, you want a walkway unobstructed from the attic opening to the platform. And you will have the framer do this now. Also, in a lot of attics, you'll have a window in a gable, or you'll have a couple of dormers on the roof, and you'll have windows in the dormer, which from the street, it looks like there's living space up in the attic, which it's just an attic space. Well, if you're not going to take some, what we will do many times is we'll take some flat black paint and we will spray on the glass so that it kind of reflects from the street and you can't see into the attic and tell that it's attic space. However, some people, they want to either put shutters up there or curtains up there to make it look like livable space. Especially if you're going to do the shutters or the curtains, have your carpenter build a walkway from the attic access door over to those windows so you can add or subtract to the windows, or you can get to the windows without falling through the insulation. If you're going to have any real heavy chandeliers that are located in some very high ceilings, like in a 2-story foyer or family room, you may want to pulley on that chandelier so you can lower it to change bulbs and clean it. And that pulley, where that pulley is, there needs to be like a square opening. You can get information from your lighting company on how big that opening should be, where the pulley is going to be located. Or you can check with your electrician to see how big that opening should be where that pulley is. And so what you want to do is, while the framer's there, you want to go ahead and box in that opening. And if it's in the center of the room, they're going to have to do it in a way where it's right in the center. And it's going to be a little box opening where the electrician will be able to install the pulley to raise and lower that large chandelier. Where you are building a shower, you may have little, what we call knee walls around the shower. And then above the knee wall will be glass. But where the door is, you will have a curb there. And then on top of that curb will be the door for the shower. Well, that curb, those little knee walls and that curb, the framer will build these. Now that curb, there's a certain way I feel like you should build it. And if you'll look at 24/7 and see my graphic there, it's going to show you the correct way I feel you should build that curb where the door goes for your shower. Your drawing may very well show seats in the shower. A lot of your framers will go ahead and build those seats out of wood. Do not build the shower seats out of wood. Tell the framer, do not build the shower seats. He'll be glad to hear that. They'll just build the shower itself, because those shower seats, I'm going to have you have the ceramic tile sub build those, and they're not going to build them out of wood, which could create a problem later. Any large garden tubs or whirlpool tubs, you may know in your mind how you want to build a frame around it, but I would not build that frame at this point. You'll do it later. I'll tell you when. So any of those frames around a garden tub, do not build them at this time. However, you do want to think about an access door, and it's a code requirement that the access door be a certain height and width. You can find out from your inspector how big it should be, or you can look in the code book and see how big it should be, but you've got to be able to access a motor for a jetted tub. So you need to think about where you're going to put that access door. Now, if you're going to build it into the frame on the front, that little skirt on the front, which I like, that's not going to be a big problem. But a lot of people would like that skirt to be out of tile or marble or something like that, and they don't want an access door in it. So you need to think about where the access door is going to go so you can access the motor, which is going to mean you're going to need to know where the motor is located on that garden tub. And most garden tubs allow you to put the motor at several locations you can choose, and you've got to order it that way. But the framer needs to go ahead and build that little access opening for the jetted tub motor, and they'll do that now. Before the framer leaves, they need to get in and clean the home out nice and clean and totally sweep it out. And they're going to throw all this scrap material in your container. I would tell the framer that all 2x material, mainly 2x4s that are 3 feet or longer, do not throw them in the container, stack them up, because they can be used by other trades that are going to be showing up. But everything else, they throw in the container, and it's going to be quite a bit of scrap, and they need to sweep the house out real good. The person that is going to inspect the framer's work is the building inspector. The building inspector will not show up now because he wants to make sure that everything the plumber, the heating and air sub cuts has been repaired. So the building inspector is going to show up later. So what I want you to do is hold back money on the framer until the rough-end building inspection. And y'all can negotiate what is fair. You could start off with, like, let's say 10%. But I want to hold back at least like $1,000, so that when they come in and inspect the home, if they find anything wrong, which they always do, then if the framer cannot get back to your home, you've got enough money to get another crew in there and to go ahead and get that stuff repaired. If you're really concerned about this, you could talk to the building inspector to see if he would come out and just give a complimentary quick check to see if there's anything obvious. If he says, no, I really don't have time, say, can I hire you as a consultant? And if he says, no, I just don't have time to do that, then you could hire maybe a home inspector or someone or an engineer just come out and take a look at it before you give the bulk of the money to the framer. But even if you have an outside inspector look at it, I still want you to hold back at least, say, $500 minimum until you pass the rough-in building inspection. After the home is cleaned out real good, you can go to like Home Depot, Lowe's, a supply house, and you can buy these spray cans of marking paint. And you can get them in fluorescent colors like fluorescent orange, blue, or red. And what I want you to do is go in the home and spray paint the name of every room on the floor. Your plan should have a name for every room, every hallway, every area. If it doesn't, then create one. Hallway 1, hallway 2. And I want you to just hand spray. It doesn't have to be nice and neat. Just hand spray the name of every room in the home. And I would suggest that you go through and just go ahead and spray the location of all your cabinets and tubs and toilets. You can see examples of this at 24/7, where you'll just spray the outline of a cabinet or an island or a toilet or a vanity. It doesn't have to be perfect. Have it kind of close to the actual dimensions. And then where you don't have those cabinets and toilets and islands and such as this, then write the name of the room in each room. And what that's going to do is going to make it real easy for people that come into the job. They don't have to wonder where things are. And if you're telling someone, go into bathroom number 2 or bathroom number 3 and do this or do that, they're going to be able to find it and know what you're talking about. Also, and if you don't understand this, look at 24/7. I want you to mark on the floor the swing of every door. So you'll mark on the floor how that door is going to be swinging open, where what side of the door the hinge is going to be attached to, whether it swings in or swings out. Again, that makes it real easy as you walk through the home. You're now aware of where light switches should go. You don't want them to go behind a door. And where several things need to go that you may not want to put behind a door. Again, look at the sketch or the photos at 24/7 to see what I'm talking about.